What's going on, people? Mark from Double Clutch Auto Reviews here. Thank you again for tuning in for the how-to video. Today I'm going to show you how to do a DIY headlight restoration on my 2008 Honda Accord EXL. As you can see, the headlights on my 2008 Accord have definitely seen some better days. They've had about 13 years of sun damage, rock chips, and other forms of on-road abuse inflicted upon them. So let's fix that today. These definitely can use a good restoration, and I think it's going to dramatically improve the overall look of the car. And here's a shot with the headlights on. You can really see those rock chips in there embedded over time. I mean, and they're just cloudy, hazy, all chipped up. They definitely date the look of this car. And for this video, I'm going to be following ChrisFix's tutorial on how to restore your headlights permanently. I'll link to that in the description below. It's a great full tutorial on how to do this yourself. So let's get started. For the way that I'm going to do this job, we're going to need 2 trash bags and a pair of scissors because I'm not going to take the headlights off the car. I'm going to keep them on. We're going to need a bottle of just plain water and a spray bottle, some isopropyl alcohol, our clear coat, the wax and polishing compound, our sandpaper ranging from 400 grit to 3000 grit, our painter's tape and masking tape, and of course our lint-free microfiber towel. Alright, so we're going to start off by taping off each headlight. If you're going through all this effort to restore your headlights, I'm sure you're going to want to do a good job. So don't rush this. Really take your time.
You can also use the side of a credit card, for instance, or another hard, flat item to get the tape in each and every crevice around the edge of the headlight to make sure you don't get any overspray on the headlight or the paintwork around it.
And now we're going to start our first wet sand with our 400 grit sandpaper and our spray bottle. I cut it in half, so I have 1/2 for each side. There we go. So now I'm going to get the whole headlight soaking wet with the spray bottle. Going to wet our sandpaper too, and we're going to gently sand in circles while keeping the headlight wet at all times. We don't want to press too hard with this because we're going to do more sanding in the next steps. Focusing on the front part of the headlight the most because this has the most rock chips from the road. And for our final sweep, we're going to do a horizontal sand, straight lines across the whole headlight. This helps leave a good edge for the clear coat to grab onto when you spray the clear coat. It also creates a nice even finish along the whole headlight when you do this uniform horizontal pattern across the whole thing once you're done. That looks great. If you look real closely, you can see that kind of milky, cloudy substance coming off on the headlight. That's exactly what we want to see. That's the old clear coat coming off. Now, I know this looks super hazy. It looks worse than before, but this is actually exactly what you want. This is great so far. So now we'll do the same exact process with the 600 grit. With this 600 grit, we can press a little bit harder because it's not as coarse as the 400. Now we're going to do the horizontal motion to create that nice edge for the clear coat to grab onto. And yet again, we're going to do the same thing with 1500 grit for the third sand. We can press even harder now because this is 1500 grit, a lot finer of a sandpaper. As the numbers go up, the finer it gets. And now for our final sanding step of the day, we're going to go to our 2500 grit. But before we do that, we want to make sure that we wipe down each headlight really well with a paper towel and water. This is to make sure that we try to get off as many plastic particulates as we can from the initial sanding steps to make sure we get a good, clean, final sand for today. So spray it down really well, get it saturated as usual, wipe it down really well. And now we'll do our final sand for the day with the 2500. Next step, we're going to use the isopropyl alcohol and our microfiber towel to clean off the headlight. This is going to clean the headlight really well. It's going to take any oils or any other particulate matter off of it. And it's also very volatile, so it dries quickly. So now I'm going to take my 2 trash bags that I've cut down the seams. I'm going to show you right here. I'm going to lay them across the whole front of the car. We'll have our tape handy. Of course, I picked a super windy day to do this. Really smart. And now I'm going to cut out a little slit for each headlight. Now clearly you can tell this is my first time doing this. This side was an absolute disaster, but I made it work. And this side definitely looks a little bit better. The difference was I cut this side more evenly and it laid a lot more flat than this side. This one is obviously a lot more crinkly, so it was a lot more difficult to put on, especially with this wind. However, you can see that I covered it pretty well, and I also used white masking tape to differentiate between the blue masking tape around the edge of the headlight. So now with both headlights taped off, we'll do one more final alcohol wipe down. Perfect. And I'll let that dry and then we'll do our clear coat. And finally, now into the fun part. We want to make sure that the headlight's completely dry. And I'm also going to be using this piece of cardboard just to help me prevent any possible overspray, especially onto my windshield right there, any other parts of the car. Shake it up nice and well. And make sure with this, we're not doing heavy coats. We're going to do Nice, light, even coats. See him sweeping side to side, making sure to start and stop off of the headlight, getting full coverage. Perfect. Thankfully the wind is blowing that way, so that's good. That works out in my favor. Perfect. Now that is coat 1 out of 4 I'm going to do, so we'll let this coat dry for 10 minutes and we'll go on to the second coat. And already coming over to do the second coat, I am super stoked. This is looking awesome, way better than it did before. Great, coat number 2 is done. And on to the third coat. This is so cool to finally see this all coming together so nicely. All right, and now for our fourth and final coat of the clear. And now we are done for the day. I'm gonna park the car overnight, let it sit for at least a day or two, and let this clear coat fully cure over each headlight, and then we'll go from there. All right, now fast forward to a couple of days later. We have allowed enough time for the clear coat to fully harden and cure on the headlight. And as you can see, I've already removed both of the garbage bags. I did this the morning after we did our initial sanding and painting treatment. So now we have to finish the job to make sure that we get the best results on each headlight and to make sure that they stay as clear as possible for as long as possible. So the first step out of the final 3 to finish this job off properly, I'm going to do none of the wet sand with my 3000 grit sandpaper. This is going to take off the very fine imperfections that I may have left off, like any orange peel that I did with the initial clear coat. Doing this extra step can allow for an even clearer finish once you're finally done. So we'll get the headlight all nice and wet. As we did before, same thing. Wet our sandpaper. Nice and light touch-ups. I'm not going super hard at all. Just doing this around the whole headlight. And of course the other side. And good. And that was our final wet sanding step. There's no more wet sanding for this process. What we're gonna do next is just dry off each headlight very thoroughly. And now that the headlights are dry, we are going to polish both of them. This is like a super fine sanding, if you will. There are little tiny particles in this polishing compound that are going to restore this headlight even more. And then after that, we're gonna wax it. Let's get a little bit on your microfiber towel. Make sure to try not to get it on the paint around the headlight, and just buff it right in. As you can see, I kept the edge of the painter's tape around the outside of the headlight still. I did that on purpose just to make sure that I still don't go over the edge with this polish or the wax. I'm only focusing on the headlights right now. I'm not focusing on the paint. You could definitely use some elbow grease on this step. It's not gonna hurt it. All right, we're gonna let this dry completely and we'll do the other headlight in the meantime. Fast forward 5 minutes, we're gonna buff out each headlight, try to get as much off as you can. And last but not least, our final step, our wax. I'm gonna give these bad Larrys 2 solid coats of wax. I'm gonna buff one on, let it dry to a haze, buff it off, do it a second time. Let's see how it comes out. Let's get a little bit on your microfiber, scoop it off, buff it on. It smells great too. All right, I think that's enough. Let that dry while we do the other side. All right, we let it dry to a haze, get a fresh microfiber, buff it out. Now we'll do another round for the last time. Wax on, wax off, as they say. And now for the final buff off. That is it for the driver's side. And lastly, the passenger side. Look at that, we are done. Now we just take off all of the painter's tape, wipe off any excess wax that we left or anything else. Try to get these little edges around the headlight. All right, that looks fantastic. Careful not to pull off any decals or anything you have, like my pinstriping going down the side of my car. Wow, one final buff around the area. Wow, and that is it. We are done, folks. I mean, check this out. These things look phenomenal. I'm so happy with how they came out. And here's a shot of the before and the after. I mean, come on, people. These are real results. You can get these at home by yourself with a few simple products that won't cost you much at all. I mean, I cannot tell you how happy I am with these results. I am super stoked. With just a little bit of effort on your part and about an afternoon's worth of work, you can get the same results on your old faded headlights. I hope you all found this video helpful, informative, and insightful. If you did, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. If you try this out on your own headlights, let me know how it worked in the comments below. Take care, guys. Good luck with the headlight restoration, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.